So what I have in mind is every day just record a very short, very brief video, and we'll work our way through a book in the Bible. It seemed to me that the best place to start is the beginning of the New Testament, which is the book of Matthew, especially as we're entering this Christmas season. It just seemed like it would be a great idea. So I'm just going to start with Matthew chapter 1, verse 1, and every day we'll just do a few verses and see where we go. Matthew 1, verse 1, chapter 1, verse 1. The book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham was the father of Isaac, and Isaac the father of Jacob, and Jacob the father of Judah and his brothers. We'll stop there for just a moment. You know, I know it's very tempting whenever we look at this beginning of Matthew, especially as modern Christ followers. It's very easy just to kind of skip through these 18 verses. It looks like it's just a long list of names, many of whom we have long since forgotten. But I think the important thing that we take a look at as we go through this first chapter of Matthew is to remember that none of these names were unimportant to God. It was important for him to have this listing, this accounting, this genealogy that we could forever look back on in his word. The very beginning of this gospel says the book of the genealogy. You know, that word genealogy is actually the same word that we would use for Genesis. It literally means the book of Genesis of Jesus, or the book of the beginning of Jesus. And again, as we go through this, we'll find over several days that we really do need to know Genesis in order to be able to understand what Matthew has to say. Matthew was actually written to a Jewish church. They understood the Old Testament much more than what we do. And so oftentimes as we go through Matthew, we see references back to the Old Testament. And that is clearly the case as we take a look here at Matthew chapter 1, verse 1. One of the things that I think is very important for us to address is this issue of Jesus Christ. Oftentimes, again, in our modern way of thinking, we just use the word Jesus Christ as if Jesus was his first name and Christ was his last name. In other words, Christ being part of the name of who Jesus is. But the actual word Christ means the anointed one, or the Messiah. Actually, if you were to put it into verb form, it would mean to anoint or to rub oil upon. And really what this is saying, what the original readers understood when they saw this genealogy of Jesus Christ, they knew that Matthew was saying, this is the one. This is the one that we were waiting for. This is the Messiah. This is the anointed one. The anointed one was always the king or the high priest. And basically Matthew is saying right from the very beginning, this is Jesus, this person that you knew as Jesus, was the Christ, the Messiah. And he says it in multiple ways throughout this passage. We see in chapter 1, verse 1, where he's talking about Jesus Christ, in other words, Jesus the anointed one, or the anointed Jesus. If we should skip down and we take a look at verse 16, we then see that he's talking about this Jesus who was born, who is called Christ. So clearly over time, very early, Jesus became known as the Christ, the Messiah, the one who was anointed, the one who was coming. We are about ready to celebrate Christmas. And throughout this Christmas holiday, my challenge to you is to remember that it's all about Jesus. It's all about the anointed one. It's all about Jesus coming. There would be no Christmas or Christ Mass if it were not for the Messiah coming. So today, take just a moment and say, Lord, I am so thankful that you came. I am so glad that you were anointed. I am so glad that you are part of my life, and I desperately want to be part of your life. Thanks for listening. We'll have more for you tomorrow. Bye-bye.